to Dockery. Did you go to Dockery before you met Spears or after?
No. Yeah, I did. And we got to piggyback back. After Bernie Klatsko started writing me, he said, look, he said, we don't know anything about Charley Patton. He said, I want to come south. I got a week's vacation. I'll come south. Let's go look for where Charley and see if we can find where he came from in the Delta. They knew he was dead. Now, what's interesting is John Fahey, the guy who later became known as a very esoteric guitarist, had his own style. I had met Fahey in 1960 in Washington, D.C. I went up there to stay with my brother who was in the Air Force, and I'm going to these hootenannies on Saturday night, and a guy named John Fahey's playing the guitar. And I've got a dobro with me by this time. And I play it. And I mentioned to him Roy Acuff. He hears I'm from Mississippi. He said, I love Roy Acuff music too. But he said, have you ever heard of Charley Patton? I said, no. He said, you've got to hear him. He said, I went to Clarksdale, Mississippi. I said, I knew where Clarksdale was. We played him in football. He said, and this guy is great, Charley Patton. I said, come on to my apartment. I want to play you Charley Patton. So I walked with Fahey to his apartment, and he puts on Charley Patton. I said, God, what is that? I couldn't understand a word he said. And I think he played me Mississippi Boll Weevil Blues, which is the most primitive pattern of all. And I said, that's just too rough for me. I'm still in the Roy Acuff. Well, I left, Washington after a couple of months.
It must have grown on you, huh?
Well, after I found those first records, and I started listening to them, I started getting into it a little more, But Mississippi Boll Weevil is almost the hardest pattern to listen to because he almost stays in one chord over and over. It's almost like a fill holler. But anyway, by 63, Bernie says, we know Charley's dead. We don't know anything about him, where he came from, who he learned from. I think he caught himself and is, the first great Delta blues singer. And so he writes me, and I agree to meet him. I met him at the Jackson Airport. We came over to my house and spent the night. In other words, and he looked at my Charley Patton records. And I also had two other records that he had never seen, and he was, one of the two foremost collectors in New York City. I had found a record by a woman singer named Maddie Delaney, who did a song called Tallahatchie River Blues. And I went to my map of Mississippi. I knew it. Tallahatchie River ran right down through the Delta, right through Greenwood. It met the Yazoo River at Greenwood. I said, she's got to be the Mississippi Delta. And by this time, they had sent me the Charley Patton album and another album or two, so I knew something about these, great Delta blues singers like Sam Collins, Son House, Skip James. I knew about 63 about these guys. So me and Bernie Klatsko take off and head into the Delta. Well, right before we left, 2 weeks before we left, I found an old woman near Vicksburg who had been married to Charley Patton.
And that was who?
Her name was Minnie Franklin. And she had a man on the porch. I was coming along door knocking. And she didn't say a lot. She said, yeah, I was married to Charley Patton for about 6 months, and said, I had to leave him. I ran off and left him in the middle of the night.
Did she say how young he was?
He was in his 20s at that time. She said it was about 1923 when she married Charley. So he'd been 30. About 1923. She said he was living, I don't remember if it was, he was either living on Dockery's or living on a plantation just off of Dockery's. Near Marigold. He was living near Marigold, so he might have moved off Dockery's at that time. But the story was, I heard from somebody else who sent me to find her, was that she had stole his best gun and some money and left and headed to Vicksburg. And this was Bovina, right outside of Vicksburg, where she was living. But she said Charley was from originally was from up around Dockery's plantation. Then I found another old guy near Yazoo City who said Charley had died up near Indianola, a place called Long Switch. So by the time Bernie Klatsko got there, I had two leads, Long Switch and Dockery's. So when we took off, we headed into the Delta, man. We headed out on a Saturday.
From Meridian.
We had Meridian back to Jackson, rented a car. We took my car to Meridian back, and he rented a car, so we headed to the Delta. And went through Yazoo City and headed to Indianola. I think we ended up in Indianola. And we left Indianola and went out looking for Long Switch, and we found Holly Ridge. Because we got to Holly Ridge first, and there was Tom Robinson's store. And we went inside, and we asked some of the black people, and he said, Charley Patton, yeah, I remember Charley. He's buried right over there. I think an old woman told me that. Said, Charley Patton, you looking for Charley Patton? There he is, right up there in that graveyard.
Look at the odds.
Well, I knew he was dead. We knew he was dead, but and Glasgow was shocked. Oh, that's where Charlie's buried? So we walked up in there, you know, he took a picture.
For the graveyard, I mean, the
Yeah.
graves.
No headstone, just black graveyard. Right across the street and about, maybe 10, 20 yards up from Tom Robinson's store, still in the corner.
Yeah, I've been to.
Yeah, and the graveyard was out there. And right now, if you go up there, it's been paved over, and there's a house out there. You know, a modern house. Probably some cotton farmer, in other words, but it's been paved over where his grave was. And it just said it was up in that corner. And there was no markers on any of the graves in that black graveyard. And now they have said they have moved his grave up to Long Switch, is about 2 miles away. Because this was on the old C&G Railroad, Columbus and Greenville Railroad line. And now they claim they moved his grave, but they didn't move it. I think, what I personally think is, I think they have paved over that cemetery, part of that cemetery where Patton was originally buried. But we left there, and, you know, people told about, you know, what they remember about Charlie. The store owner, Tom Robinson, told about how that Patton used to come in there. In other words, and he would play the fiddle behind Charlie sometimes. You know, I had this, by the way, all this information in a book I wrote back in 2006. Turned down by the New York publisher. I'm sure one of some boggy bile, you know.